At the beginning, a drone suddenly flies past a girl named Teresa, scaring her, while Caleb laughs and jokes about it. When Teresa tells him to check on Jessica, he casually says he already gave her medicine so she can sleep. Still worried, Teresa goes into the cabin and finds Jessica lying on the bed. She talks to her, but Jessica does not respond, so Teresa sits down and starts reading a book, but suddenly Jessica sits up and begins repeating the exact lines from the book in a creepy voice. Shocked and scared, Teresa asks her to stop, and Jessica suddenly collapses. When Teresa goes closer, Jessica wakes up again and starts having violent seizures. As Teresa tries to help, Jessica suddenly grabs her throat and pulls her hair out. Later, Teresa runs to Caleb. He is shocked after seeing Teresa, but suddenly Jessica comes outside and grabs the drone and shockingly injures herself with its blades before falling into the water. Caleb jumps in to save Jessica despite Teresa's warnings, but moments later, the water turns bloody and his severed head is thrown out. Teresa frozen in fear as Jessica rises from the water and the scene cuts. The scene then shifts to one day earlier. A woman named Ellie is living in an old apartment with her 3 children, Bridget, Danny, and Cassie. One day, Ellie hears someone knocking on the door. She goes to check, but when she opens it, no one is there. Just then, her sister Beth suddenly appears and surprises her. Beth explains that the building's downstairs buzzer is broken, so she was able to walk in easily. Ellie replies that the whole building is in bad condition and will soon be demolished in about a month. Beth is shocked to hear this and asks if they have found a new place to live. Ellie says they haven't found one yet and are still looking. Later, Beth talks to Cassie about the doll she is playing with. She asks who the doll is, and Cassie says her name is Stephanie, and Cassie shares a scary story. She says her brother Danny told her that the building used to be a bank, and a worker who was caught stealing ended his life there. According to the story, if someone walks around with coins, the sound will attract his ghost, and he will scare them to death to take their money. Danny supports the story, making it sound real. Cassie then says that if the ghost comes after her, her doll Stephanie will protect her. Beth tells her that ghosts are not real, and she only believes in what she can see. After this conversation, Beth gives gifts to everyone, which she brought from Bangkok during her tour as she works as a guitar technician. Beth takes out a gift for Ellie's husband, but she notices everyone suddenly goes quiet. Confused, she asks Ellie what's wrong. Ellie avoids answering at first and tells Danny to take the car and go get pizza with his sisters, sending the kids away. Once they leave, Ellie tells Beth that her husband left them. Beth asks if Ellie's husband left for someone else. Ellie explains that he didn't leave for another person, but he walked out on the family and now thinks just paying child support is enough to be a father. Beth asks why Ellie didn't tell her. Ellie reminds her that she did call her twice, once when he said he was leaving and again when he actually moved out, which was 2.5 months ago. Beth apologizes and explains that she was busy with work, trying to move up in her job as a guitar technician, and got too caught up. She then asks Ellie that they need to talk properly, but Ellie, clearly stressed, avoids talking about it. Later, Beth listens to the voicemails Ellie had sent her earlier, realizing she ignored her when she needed help the most. Ellie then comes and sits beside Beth, asking what is going on with her. Beth admits that she messed up again and needs Ellie's help. Ellie asks what happened, but before Beth can explain, the entire building suddenly starts shaking due to an earthquake. At the same time, the kids in the basement who had gone to get pizza feel the strong tremors. They panic and try to escape, but the ground suddenly cracks open beneath them. After a few moments, the shaking stops. As everything becomes quiet again, Danny notices a large hole in the ground. When he looks inside, he realizes there is an old bank vault hidden underneath. Curious, Danny decides to climb down despite Bridget warning him not to go. Inside, he finds a strange box and opens it and discovers a photograph of 3 priests along with a vinyl record. As he starts putting vinyl records in his bag, he hears a strange noise which scares him. Suddenly, a statue of Jesus almost falls on him, making him jump in fear. Danny explores further and notices many crucifixes hanging around. He then finds a concrete coffin. When he looks closer, he sees a crack on one side. Curious, he bends down and pulls out something wrapped inside. As he opens it reveals a mysterious and eerie book hidden inside. Meanwhile, upstairs, Ellie becomes worried about her kids. While Beth tries to call them, she tells Ellie that the signal is down and hopes the kids are safe. Anxious, Ellie goes to her neighbor Gabriel's apartment and knocks on the door. Gabriel opens and asks if everyone is okay. Ellie tells him that her kids went out to get pizza and she cannot reach them, so she asks if she can borrow his car to go find them. Gabriel kindly offers to drive her instead and goes to get his keys. At that moment, another neighbor, Fonda, steps out and strangely asks Beth if she can hear, talking about her cat that got scared during the earthquake and is hiding somewhere in the ducts in the building. Just then, the kids return. Ellie rushes to them and scolds them gently, reminding them not to use the elevator after an earthquake. Later that night, Danny shows Bridget a strange book he found inside an old bank vault and wonders if it might be worth money, especially since their mom is struggling. But Bridget feels uneasy and tells him that something like that was probably locked away for a reason. When Danny tries to open the book, it suddenly cuts his hand, and a few drops of his blood fall onto it. The book absorbs the blood and unlocks on its own. As Danny flips through the pages, they both see disturbing and creepy drawings inside. Frightened, Bridget begs him to stop and close it, but Danny keeps going until she finally shuts it herself and tells him to put it back inside the bank vault underneath. Danny says they can't go out at night, so Bridget makes him promise to return it first thing in the morning. After he agrees, Bridget leaves the room. Later, Danny plays a vinyl record he found with the book. The recording is of Father Marcus Littleton, who explains that the book is one of the ancient volumes called the Book of the Dead, made from human flesh and written in blood. He warns that it contains dangerous rituals meant to contact supernatural forces, but despite being rejected by the church, he and others continued studying it in secret. As the recording continues, he begins reading one of the passages, and strange chanting starts playing. Danny tries to stop the record, but it won't stop, and even the needle sparks when he tries to remove it. At the same time, the pages of the book begin flipping on their own. Meanwhile, Ellie goes into the elevator. At that moment, an invisible force moves toward the building. As Ellie steps outside the elevator, the force enters the building and violently pushes her inside the elevator. The elevator suddenly shoots upward at high speed and then stops abruptly on her floor, throwing her to the ground. When Ellie wakes up, she's alone and injured. She tries to call for help, but no one hears her. As she tries to open the elevator door using her car key, she hears a low, terrifying growl. Suddenly, something unseen pushed her, even pulling at her earrings, injuring her. But then the presence slaps Ellie. Then elevator cables suddenly wrap around her neck, lifting her into the air. She struggles desperately, but more cables wrap around her arms and legs, trapping her completely. In intense pain and fear, Ellie screams helplessly as the unseen force overpowers her. Suddenly, the power in the house goes out, and at the same time, the record finally stops, and Danny quickly closes the book in fear. Beth and Cassie go to check on Bridget, who says it looks like only their apartment has lost power. Beth then notices that Ellie is not in her room. As Bridget lights candles, the door suddenly opens and Ellie walks in. She goes straight to the kitchen, turns on the stove, and starts cracking the eggs in an unsettling way. When Beth asks what's wrong, Ellie begins talking about a beautiful dream, but her words quickly turn disturbing as she says she wants to cut open Beth and stay inside her body forever as a happy family. She suddenly starts laughing, then her body begins shaking uncontrollably and whispers that something is inside her. Then she collapses to the floor and starts crawling toward them in a terrifying way. The family watches in fear as Ellie begins to vomit. For a brief moment, she regains herself and warns Beth not to let it take her children. Right after saying this, she collapses. Beth and Danny quickly try to take Ellie to the hospital. When they reach the elevator, they realize it is not working properly. Panicking, they rush to the stairs, but they are shocked to see that the staircase is completely destroyed. Beth realizes that Ellie is dead, and in shock, she explains everything that happened to their neighbors, Gabriel and Fonda. When Gabriel gently closes Ellie's eyes, they suddenly open again, making everyone uneasy. He closes them once more and asks if he can say a prayer. Even though Beth says Ellie wasn't religious, Gabriel insists, and they all join him as he prays. After the prayer, Fonda notices that Ellie looks like she was badly beaten. Trying to find a way out, Gabriel suggests using an old fire escape ladder on the north side of the building to go down and get help, but Fonda explains that to reach it, they'll have to pass through another apartment, which is empty. Later, when Beth is alone with Ellie's body, she breaks down emotionally, saying she doesn't know what to do without her and feels too scared to even face the kids. She talks about how Ellie was always the strong one who took care of everyone, and she can't believe she's gone. Suddenly, phone starts playing a voice note, and Beth hears Ellie screaming in pain, saying she's burning alive. Shocked, Beth drops the phone, and when she turns back, she sees Ellie's eyes wide open. Ellie suddenly blinks and slowly sits up, terrifying Beth. Just then, the kids rush in and are shocked to see their mom alive again, realizing her body is burning hot. They all rush to the bathroom and place Ellie in the bathtub to cool her down, but she starts shaking violently. Suddenly, Ellie violently jumps up and clings to the ceiling, shocking everyone. Bridget quickly pulls Cassie away to safety, while Beth and Danny are frozen as Ellie lets out a terrifying scream that echoes through the house. After a moment, she suddenly drops back into the bathtub. Just when they think it's over, Ellie slowly rises from the tub and smiles in a disturbing way. When Danny nervously calls out to her, she responds in a demonic voice, saying that their mother is gone. Then, she starts laughing and begins crawling toward them, forcing Beth and Danny to panic and run out of the bathroom. Ellie follows them out, now holding a sharp piece of broken mirror. As she gets closer, Danny quickly hides behind a chair. Suddenly, Ellie attacks and stabs Beth's hand with the shard. Bridget begs her mom to stop, but Ellie speaks in a disturbing voice, saying she's no longer herself and feels free. Then, Ellie turns on Bridget. She grabs a tattoo machine and horrifyingly drives it into her own head. She turns it toward Bridget and tries to stab her in the eye. Bridget manages to move away just in time, but still gets a small cut on her cheek. Ellie then leans in as if to kiss the wound. Danny steps in and smashes a chair into Ellie, knocking her into a dark room. Soon, Ellie comes out of the room and coldly taunts them, asking who will die next. At that moment, Gabriel opens the main door and calls out to Ellie, which immediately draws her attention. In a flash, Ellie rushes at him and throws him out into the hallway. Outside, two boys, Scott and Jake, watch in horror as Ellie attacks Gabriel and plucking one of his eyes out. Taking the chance, Beth quickly shuts and locks the door, while the kids help push furniture against it. But Ellie doesn't stop. She starts slamming her head against the door again and again. After a moment, everything suddenly goes quiet. When Beth looks through the peephole, she is horrified to see Ellie brutally attack Scott and Jake. Then, Gabriel, still alive, begs Beth to help him, but before she can do anything, Ellie grabs him and kills him. Just then, Fonda shoots at Ellie and steps into the hallway, trying to fight back, but Ellie drags him away, his screams echoing through the hallway, killing him. After everything that happened, Bridget angrily confronts Danny, saying their mom now looks just like the horrifying images from the book he brought. She blames him for everything and even lunges at him in anger, but Beth quickly steps in and stops them, warning them not to turn on each other. Feeling guilty, Danny shows Beth the book and the vinyl record he found, explaining that a creepy priest was reading dark prayers from it, and that everything started after those words were spoken. He admits that Bridget is right and that it's all his fault. At the same time, Bridget notices her wound begins to spread, and she hears a demonic voice calling her name. Then Bridget's nose and eyes begin to bleed, and in horror, she throws up maggots. Meanwhile, Cassie hears Ellie softly singing a lullaby from outside. Curious and scared, she looks through the peephole and sees Ellie sitting in the hallway, singing. But suddenly, Ellie stands up and turns directly toward the door. Ellie starts talking in a calm but disturbing way, saying she feels sad about Cassie's father, but then claims he's back and they're all going to be a happy family again. She sweetly asks Cassie to open the door and let them in. Even though Cassie notices something is wrong, Ellie keeps manipulating her, acting loving and convincing her to open the door. Hesitantly, Cassie begins to unlock it, but the moment the door opens, Ellie violently grabs her by the neck. Cassie screams, and Beth and Danny rush out just in time. They manage to pull Cassie away from Ellie's grip and slam the door shut again, locking it. Later, Beth walks into the kitchen and finds Bridget sitting on the countertop. When Beth asks what she's doing, Beth is horrified to see Bridget eating pieces of glass. Suddenly, Bridget spits at Beth, knocking her off balance. As she crawls toward her in a creepy way, Beth kicks her back and throws a grater at her, but Bridget easily catches it. When Beth tries to escape, Bridget grabs her leg and painfully drags the grater across it. In desperation, Beth hits her with a pot to break free. Just then, Danny arrives, but Bridget turns and chases him. He runs to his room, with Bridget right behind him. She goes after Cassie next, but Cassie manages to defend herself and stabs Bridget with a sharp stick. Beth rushes in and watches in shock as Bridget slowly pulls the stick out of her body. She begins moving toward Beth again, but suddenly collapses to the ground. Later, Danny shows Beth that he has wrapped up and tied Bridget's body to keep everyone safe. Beth then says she wants to listen to the vinyl record, hoping it might contain something that can stop all this. Danny warns her that the words on it are dangerous, but Beth insists that it might also have a way to fight back. Since there's no power, Beth manages to fix the turntable herself. Before starting, she gives Danny a knife, just in case something goes wrong and she gets possessed too. Then Beth locks herself inside the room, puts on the headphones, and begins playing the vinyl. The voice of the priest Marcus reveals the terrifying truth behind the book. He explains that after reading from it, he unknowingly unleashed a powerful demonic entity. It first possessed one of the priests, slowly destroying him from the inside. They tried to stop it with prayers, but nothing worked. Instead, the evil only spread faster, taking control of everyone around him. In desperation, he tried to kill them and even burned their bodies. But nothing worked. They kept coming back, more violent. Realizing there was no escape, he tried extreme measures like dismembering the bodies, but even that failed. Now, hiding in the cellar and waiting for his own fate, he leaves behind a final warning. This evil cannot be stopped, only run. Meanwhile, outside, Ellie hears a cat meowing from inside the air duct. At the same time, Danny carefully looks through the peephole and realizes that Ellie is no longer outside. At the same time, he and Cassie hear strange noises coming from the air duct. Cassie thinks it might be Mr. Fonda's cat, but Danny senses something is wrong. Following the sound, he moves toward the room where Beth is listening to the record. Suddenly, Bridget rises into the air and attacks. Danny quickly steps in to protect Cassie and stabs Bridget, while Cassie hides under the couch. Enraged, Bridget throws Danny into the kitchen, pulls the knife out of her own body, and stabs his hand. She then levitates again and vomits blood on him. Bridget then stabs Danny again on the chest. Bridget overpowers him, repeating that he should have never brought the book. In a desperate move, Danny sprays oil through the stove fire onto Bridget and sets her on fire. After that, Bridget finally collapses. At the same time, Ellie crawls through the air duct and enters Beth's room while she is listening to the record. Beth suddenly notices Ellie's reflection in the window and quickly grabs a screwdriver, stabbing her in the neck, but it has no effect. Ellie violently throws Beth out of the room. Beth lands outside and sees Danny badly injured on the floor, with Cassie hiding under the couch. She rushes to Danny, but with his last breath, he apologizes to Cassie and dies. Before Beth can react, Ellie grabs her, slams her to the ground, and threatens her in a terrifying voice. She realizes Beth is pregnant and cruelly mocks her, then digs her nails into Beth's stomach. Just in time, Cassie slides a pair of scissors toward Beth, and she stabs Ellie in the nose to break free. Beth quickly pulls Cassie out and tries to escape the building, but the fire exit door won't open. Meanwhile, Ellie recovers and comes after them again. Beth grabs Fonda's shotgun and shoots Ellie in the leg, slowing her down. Even then, Ellie keeps manipulating Cassie, trying to turn her against Beth, but Cassie bravely says she knows that's not her mom anymore. As the chaos continues, even the dead bodies of Danny and Bridget rise again and laughs in a horrifying way. Ellie declares that everyone will die before dawn. Beth tells Cassie to run as all the corpses begin chanting together. They rush to the elevator, but it malfunctions. Cassie realizes the keys are blocking it and removes them, allowing the doors to close. But just when they think they might escape, blood suddenly starts pouring into the elevator from everywhere, trapping them inside. At the same time, the possessed Bridget and Danny begins merging with Ellie in a horrifying way, and the book's pages flip on their own, revealing a terrifying demonic form. The fused demon made from Ellie, Bridget, and Danny escapes through the air duct, which Cassie notices in horror. Beth quickly tries to escape through the elevator hatch with Cassie, but the demon blocks their way. At the same time, the elevator fills with blood and becomes too heavy, suddenly crashing down to the ground floor and throwing them out. They manage to reach the parking lot and get into a car, hoping to escape. Cassie tries to open the shutter with a remote, but it doesn't work until Beth tries, and it slowly begins to lift. Beth drives forward, but the car suddenly gets stuck when a tire falls into a hole. Cassie looks back and warns that the demon is coming. As it rushes toward them, they quickly abandon the car and hide behind a pillar. As the shutter begins closing again, Beth grabs Cassie and runs, barely managing to slip under it. The demon grabs Cassie's leg and drags her back inside. It takes her to Fonda's truck and picks up a chainsaw, taunting her in a terrifying voice. Beth refuses to give up and breaks back in. Just as the demon is about to attack Cassie, Beth shoots it, forcing it to turn toward her. Cassie escapes and hides under the truck while the demon throws the chainsaw at Beth, knocking her down. The creature then turns on a wood chipper and tries to throw Beth into it. But at the last second, Cassie bravely switches off the machine, giving Beth the chance to free herself. Beth quickly grabs the chainsaw and tells Cassie to switch the machine back on. As soon as it starts, Beth charges forward and attacks, forcing the creature toward the wood chipper. With all her strength, she pushes the demon inside as it begins to get shredded. Just when it seems over, the demon stops itself and, in Ellie's voice, weakly asks Beth for help. Without hesitation, Beth drives the chainsaw into its head, and the machine pulls the rest of its body in, leaving only the head behind. Even then, the demon keeps mocking her, saying she'll fail just like her mother. Enraged, Beth kicks the head into the machine, finally destroying it for good. At last, Beth and Cassie escape the building, ending the nightmare. The next morning, another woman from the same building tries to use the elevator, but it's not working. So she takes the stairs down to the parking lot while talking on a video call with Teresa. It's revealed that the woman is Jessica, the woman who was possessed in the beginning of the movie, and she casually tells Teresa she'll pick her up soon before ending the call. When Jessica gets into her car, she notices something strange in the mirror, Ellie's car, covered in blood, and is horrified by what she sees. As she tries to call for help, a sudden noise startles her. Moments later, an unseen force rushes toward her and attack, and the movie ends. And that wraps up Evil Dead Rise. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell for more chilling movie stories. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.